Hi and welcome. My name is Julieanne Kost, and we're going to take the next few minutes to look at all of the new video features in Photoshop CS6. I'm going to begin here in Bridge, and I want to select these 3 video clips and quickly import them into Photoshop. So I'll choose Tools, Photoshop, and then Load Files into Photoshop Layers. That's going to open each one of these individual clips and put it on its own layer within the same document. And in fact, here we can see on the Layers panel, there are the 3 video clips. But what you'll notice down here in the timeline is that each one of these video layers is then stacked one on top of the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all 3 of the video clips in the Layers panel, and then on the timeline, I'll use this icon in order to create a new video group from clips. What that does is it puts all of the video layers into a single group, and it puts them sequentially one after another so that I can use it more like a video editor. Now, you'll notice that as I move my time insertion marker, we can preview the video plane. But if I want to set a new in or out point, all I need to do is position my cursor over the end of the clip and then simply drag. And as I drag, I get a preview right above it that shows me where I'm going to put my new out point. If I wanted to set a new in point, I would simply select from the other side of the clip and drag over. You'll notice that when I let go and I've set that new in point or out point, all of the rest of the clips on the timeline automatically scoot over so that there's no gaps between the clips. All right, once I've set all of my in and out points, I might want to add a transition between each clip. By clicking on this icon, I can choose between fades and crossfades. So for example, between 2 pieces of video, I might want a crossfade, so I'll just drag and drop it. You'll notice that the duration is set right down here by default to 1 second, but I can change that. I'll drag another crossfade right here, and then I'll use a fade with black at the beginning and also at the end. Of course, I can also reposition these if I want to by simply dragging or reordering the layers down here in the sequence. But for now, I'll leave them the way they are. Now, if I position my cursor and scrub on top of that transition, we can see the one clip fading into the other. In addition, each clip has a little triangle here in the upper right-hand corner where you can find additional attributes for either the video or the audio. Let's say, for example, I've captured audio with this video, but it's really terrible, so I want to mute it by just clicking on this icon. I'll go ahead and do the same for the other 2 clips as well, because I know that the audio is not any good, and I would much rather click right here to add my own audio track. So I'll add some audio, and then just navigate to find a song, and open that, and we can see that now on the audio track. I'll go ahead and move the time insertion point back to the beginning, and if I tap the space bar, it will go ahead and play this with the audio. Of course, the best part about having video in Photoshop is that all of the other tools that you know in Photoshop still apply to your video. So let's say, for example, you wanted to make a change to one of these video clips. Maybe you needed to color correct it, or you wanted to add a special effect to it. Well, I'll just select the layer on the Layers panel of the clip that I want to add my adjustment to. And at the bottom of the Layers panel, I'll click on my adjustment layer icon, and then we can choose from the list. Maybe I want to do a little bit of color balancing. I might want to move this a little bit more towards cyan and a little bit more towards blue. And you'll notice that by default, because this video was in a video group, Photoshop automatically added the adjustment layer and clipped it so that it would only affect that video. Now we might also want to add some still images to our video. So let's navigate back to Bridge, and I'll select these next 2 images. And just to speed things up, I'll go ahead and load them into a single document. That just makes it easier to drag and drop to combine all of these images together. I have a keyboard shortcut set up that I can go ahead and tile all of my open images. On the Layers panel, we'll select both of those and just drag and drop them into my video project. Now I no longer need this open, so we'll close that. Now, because I had a layer selected that was inside the video group, you'll notice that Photoshop went ahead and added those layers within the group, but I want to move them outside of the group so that I can play them on top of the video. Of course, if I wanted them to stay in line where they are, we can do that, and you can see that it went, of course, these files are much too big, so we're only seeing a part of it. So let's move them outside of the video group by just dragging until we see that solid line. And now you can see that the stacking order is changed. No longer are these sequential because they're no longer part of the video group. Of course, I can move these around. They're both selected so they move together, but we could deselect them and then move them independently if we wanted to. So let's position our time insertion marker right on top of this one. Obviously, this layer is far too large, so I'll click on the arrow and then choose from my motion options to pan and zoom. Now, as I preview what that looks like, we can see that Photoshop has automatically, basically, it set the keyframes that I need in order to zoom that. With this second clip, if I want to be more specific and I actually want to control exactly how it pans and zooms, then all I need to do is convert this to a smart object. Because you'll notice right now on my timeline that I can keep track of the position of this layer. But what I want is I actually want it to transform over time. So in order to convert it to a smart object, in my Layers panel, I'll right mouse click and say Convert to Smart Object. Now let's look at the options that I have. No longer does it say Position, it says Transform. So at the beginning of this clip, let's go ahead and transform this down so that it kind of plays like a picture in a picture. And we'll scoot that right to there and hit Return. And I want Photoshop to keep track of this. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch to set my first keyframe. Then I'll move to the end of the duration of the clip. In this case, it's a still frame. So, I mean, I could make this as long as I wanted to. But let's go ahead and move it out. And I'll go to Free Transform again. And we'll just zoom that up a bit and hit Return. And let's get our preview a little bit larger here so we can see what's going on. When I did that free transform, you'll see that Photoshop automatically added that second keyframe. So now we can go back in time and you can see when that image appears, I've got the exact precision and control that I need to move that image within my video by using the transformation controls on a smart object. Finally, you might want to add a filter to a video clip. So let's move forward in time. This clip looks a little bit unsharp to me. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to add a high pass sharpening effect. But if I add a filter on a video clip, as it is right now, all Photoshop will do is add that effect to the first frame in that video sequence. So what I'm going to do is on my Layers panel, I will click on the clip and then I'm going to right mouse click and I'm actually going to turn this into a smart object. Once it's a smart object, now we can go under the Filter menu, come down to Other, move over to High Pass, and this is what the High Pass filter looks like by default. I'm going to go ahead and move the radius up a little bit and click OK. But obviously that's not the sharpening effect that I want because I see all that gray. Well, you'll notice on your Layers panel, if I double click on this icon right here, I can change my blend mode to either Soft Light, which will give me a little bit more subtle sharpening effect, or to Overlay. If I'm happy with that, I'll click OK, and now you can see as I scrub through the timeline that that image looks much sharper than it did before. So the key there is if you want to add any kind of filtering to your video clips, just make sure that you turn them into a smart object first. When you complete your project, you're going to want to render out the video, so you can either select File and then Export and Render Video, or there's an icon in the lower left of the timeline. Clicking on that brings up all the rendering options. So you want to save your location and then you can choose to use the Adobe Media Encoder, or you could go ahead and output this to an image sequence. You'll select your format, and then for presets you'll notice that we have a wide variety that should meet probably 99% of your needs right off the bat. But of course, if you want something a little bit more custom than this, you can go ahead and select, maybe you're going to Vimeo, but you can always change any of the rest of the attributes. One of the nice features here is this option to color manage, because sometimes you might have a mix of images that are in different color spaces. So in order to bring them all into sRGB, you'll want to go ahead and check that option. And then simply click Render to render your video. Well, that's a quick overview of all of the new video features in Photoshop CS6. You'll notice that I was using the regular version, so this is no longer an extended only feature. Thanks for watching.